Welcome back to the Wooed Up podcast, where spirituality meets reality.
Where spirituality meets reality.
Woo woo.
Ski. If you see me and you're trying to see what's up, ski. And I'm running, ski. You got me twerking my butt cheese now.
I hope that you look at that camera or use that camera for that.
Let's see if I get a little. I can't. All right, guys. Well, welcome back to part 2 of episode 5 of Wooed Up podcast.
That's Kayla.
And that's Tiffany. And we are here at Muted Studio.
Yes, a beautiful studio in Austin. Mm-hmm. Brian and Ben have graciously allowed us to use this space. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, but I feel like I look like an angel.
Exactly. It's giving opulence.
It's given luxury.
It's given luxury. I mean, look at these green chairs. Y'all know that we love a chair moment, and these chairs are giving. They are giving. So I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful that we have this space and this time to really share and continue to flesh out our experience from this past weekend.
Yeah.
If you guys are here, then that means part 1 has already dropped and released. And so we're just going to continue on chatting about the rest of this experience.
Yeah, the Reborn Retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended episode 5, part 1 on halfway through. So we're halfway through Saturday. Our retreat ended on Monday, started on that Friday. Mm-hmm. And we just have exited the Temazcal, and you've journaled. Mm-hmm. You've cleansed yourself in the shower. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember connecting back in with you prior to the afternoon workshop that Soul led and that Pat led.
Right.
But I know that we go to it's like an inner child healing workshop. Mm-hmm. And Pat starts it with a meditation and the Ho'oponopono. I hope I'm saying that right.
Ho'oponopono? Ho'oponopono. Oh, I don't want to butcher it.
Ho'oponopono,
okay.
I believe is how it's pronounced.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, I apologize, but it is a very powerful modality. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually listening to a book that Naomi recommended right now about shamanism, specifically in the Hawaiian lands. Mm-hmm. And that's where this comes from, this healing modality, where essentially either to yourself or to another or to any situation that you're dealing with, you can flush it out. Mm-hmm. And it's, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I love you. Mm-hmm. And we meditated on that, and we practiced that with one another, looking each other in each other's eyes, and sending energy through our hands to each other. And it was really profound for me because I ended up meeting with one of the other women who shares the same name as an ex of mine. And I was looking into her eyes, and her eyes were very similar to the same ex. And I was like, oh, and I immediately felt like, I constantly asking for forgiveness and just sending so much love to this person. So, that was healing for me, and clearly I needed it. I didn't really realize I needed more healing from that relationship, but probably always will. Always needing forgiveness as well, and just really accepting it for what it is and allowing it to be what it is. So that was profound for me. And then the second part of that was Soul's led meditation, and really calling back past versions of ourselves. Right. So at different age ranges. And for me, that was really powerful because I have really let go of past versions of myself where I was ashamed of them and shunned them and was like, I'm no longer that, as if they weren't these large chunks of my life, age 18 to 22 or whatever the age range was, and calling back certain moments of that and what that time frame represented for us, and identifying even an object that represented those years, and calling that back in and reclaiming that. And I had said in the beginning of our in the opening circle of this retreat, I really wanted, the jaguar had been coming to me, and I was being led to call back in my fire energy. Astrologically, I have so much fire in me. Just in general, I'm a very fiery person. Once you get to know me, and I had shunned that away. You know, I was like, you're an angry woman. That's not safe for me or for others. And that's just what that was. That was a time frame for me. That was a toxic masculine energy that I was ashamed of, and I didn't want to be a part of it. So I was like, no, I'm not, I'm not an angry person. I'm not fiery. But no, I am fiery. And I just needed to learn how to embrace that in a safe way.
Right.
And so really that's what this retreat was for me, is bringing back all those versions of myself and what that was for me. And so the first section was being an attorney, and how much of a fiery bitch I needed to be up against these men and get my point across and argue my way through court, through trial, through hearings, depositions. And so the object that came to me was a gavel, and just remembering, like, you are in control and you chose that path for a reason, because you are a Libra moon and you want that balance. And that's so important for your emotions to find that balance and to be fiery, but in a safe way, and to lead others with that fire, really putting that pitta energy behind them and being like, no, you can fucking do this. I see this in you, like, let's bite this fear in the ass. And so that was part of that meditation and that journey for me. And then I think the others two, well, there was 3 others. One was really calling in what makes me feel alive, and not doing things for other people, not being like, oh, I should go and do this, activity because that would make this person think this of me, or I should go do this activity because everybody that I like is doing this. It was really more like, no, when you want to go do something, it's because you want to do it, because you're interested in it, and it's following your path and what lights you up. And so something that resonated with me during that time was a color guard flag. And because I really enjoyed doing that. And that's where I kind of found my love for dance and just like performing and tapping in with the drum line, But at the same time, I only did it. What brought me to it is because all my friends were doing it, and my boyfriend at the time wasn't on the drum line. So it was just a remembering of follow your own path and what lights you up, and don't be steered by others. Right. And so that was one section. And then really the other 2 for me was I had to grow up really fast. My mother was 15 when she had me, and my grandmother, who was like my mother, died when I was 7. My mom was 22. I had to really reparent and reparent myself, but also parent my mother. We had to kind of parent each other back and forth. And I wouldn't change anything about that. I love my mom so much. She's such a powerhouse. I would not be a powerhouse without her. She's going to get shit done, and she's going to do all the shit.
Shout out to Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa, she's a powerful woman. And I look up to her so much, but it was a journey for us. It really was a journey for us. And I wouldn't change it, and I'm so grateful for that journey. But if I could, remember what it's like to be a child and to not have, to be carefree, to be able to play, to remember that this life is all about the 5 senses and doing the things that light you up, that make you feel good, and playing, and not everything has to be so serious all the time, even in this healing work. And so that's really what I called back in, are those parts of me, and just embracing those parts of me that I lost, that I had to shove away for one reason or another. And so that was really powerful for me. And I really, afterwards, I felt like complete. Like I was like, damn, I'm back. Like after that Temazcal, I released all that shit. And then I called back in the things that resonated for me. And I felt fulfilled and whole after that.
Those are exactly the words that you used. You felt whole.
Yeah.
Which was very powerful to hear from you, because just that morning I went upstairs into the room and you were journaling and you were you were, I think you were tearing up, and I was like, babe, what's going on? And you were just speaking to some of the feelings that were coming up for you. And it's funny because we were, well, not funny, but we were just talking about, like, in that moment about the anger. Oh, because of the conversation that we were having at breakfast. Yeah. There was a bit of not like a disagreement as in an argument, but everyone is kind of speaking to their beliefs about a certain thing or how to operate in a certain capacity.
About like abundance and spirituality.
And business.
Yeah. And spirituality.
Yes, exactly. And your perspective just wasn't aligned with the perspective of a few of the other ladies that were there. Mm-hmm. And so you were reflecting on that. And when I came in and you were asking me, like, if I felt like you were being angry, or if you were, if they felt like you were being angry towards them, or you were being snippy with them. And my perspective was no. Granted, I can't speak for how other people perceive you because I know you in a completely different way. Yeah. And then that wound of being angry was like definitely like hit for you.
For sure. And,
we kind of talked about a few different things about that moment, but also, the story that you were like, the baggage that you were carrying from that.
Yeah.
Of like, every new person that you meet, it's like, hey, just letting you know, like, I used to be angry. Yeah. I used to carry a lot of anger. And that's what you said towards me, like when we met.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's crazy that you keep talking about this anger that you used to have, when I know you to be the exact opposite of that, right, in those moments. And so, we touched on that. And then it ended up being a part of, that actual process that day.
You're completely right about that. I did forget about that. I was really, because the night before you were going through it, and you're like, bitch, tomorrow it's going to be you. And I was like,
it's always that.
Oh, no. But it really was. The next morning, I was like, I feel misunderstood. I feel like whenever I am passionate about something, that people just assume I'm angry. But in reality, that is what I was creating in my own mind. And I was carrying that with me of, I'm an angry woman. Hi, I'm Tiffany. I used to be an angry woman. And you're like, why do you have to introduce that every time? Like, why are you still holding on to that? And that hit. I was like, I remember looking over at you and being like kind of starting to smirk like the Grinch. Like, you're right. It is me holding on to that story that I am unsafe to myself or unsafe to others. And it just like clicked to me. Like, I wasn't the one letting that go. I was making that part of my identity, just like the woman that is healed from cancer now. But she was, she said she always shows up and is like, I'm a cancer survivor. Like, that was always her identity, but she's so much more than that. Yep. And that's just one part of her story.
Yep.
And so that really resonated with me. So going into that, all of the healing modalities that we experienced that full day really was all rooted in that, and me letting go of, I used to be an angry woman. Like, I used to be a lot of things.
Exactly.
But it's really more about, like, who are you now?
Right.
And how can you use those things to your power?
Exactly.
Like I had just spoken about, like, there's one thing to be an angry woman. It's another to be passionate and fiery and using it for your good and knowing how to use it for your good and knowing when to tap into it and balance it out and use it to create safety.
Exactly.
So that Saturday was really profound for me in that way.
Yeah. I feel like those experiences were like definitely massive moments for you to receive healing in a very specific part of your life, an area that you've been working on and working through for so long. And to be on the other side of that, watching that for you, like, made my heart so happy, because I know how important this little piece of, it's a very large piece of the puzzle of the story of your life, how that is to you.
Yeah.
And so I know that what you received from that was huge. Like, if that was the only thing you received from that retreat, it was well worth the money, the time, and everything else.
Totally. Yeah. It was like it was a 3D healing that I needed.
Exactly. Very much so.
It really was. But I know for you, After the meditation, we had ecstatic dancing. So it was like embodying our different emotions. Yes. And girl, when anger came on, I was just like, screaming in the jungle. And it felt so fucking good to just utilize that emotion within my body in a positive way, in a way that I love, dancing.
Yeah.
But I know for you had already had such a serious, intense morning of major releasing in a different way than I had, for sure.
Very much so.
You could see that physically. So the afternoon workshop was a lot different for you.
It was very much so different for me. And I'm actually kind of grateful for it, because if it would have been more like deeper on top of what I had already experienced that morning, I don't know if I would have been able to. I don't know what I would have done. I was literally still processing whatever that morning was for me. And when I say processing, I don't mean like intellectualizing the experience. I mean just existing in whatever energy that I was existing in, and that energy just being like just being. It wasn't necessarily weird. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It just was. And it was very much feeling like kind of like a clean slate almost, of like, I have been reborn from this experience, from the Temazcal. Like, I know that we're like, oh, Renasco, we're reborn, but I felt literally reborn and brand new. So the idea of like, oh, us going back in time and reconnecting with our younger self, or apologizing to, I'm like, I've already healed all of that. Like I healed all of that while we were in the Temazcal. Like I don't have anything currently that I felt like I needed to tap into. If anything, forcing myself to tap into that was actually creating a negative result, negative experience in my body. Yeah. And so I actually kind of felt a little off after that experience. But thankfully the next morning through your goddess workshop, it really helped me ground back in. So yeah, that experience wasn't necessarily the same level of hit for me as I know it was for literally every other woman that was there in that space. And when we were laying in the meditation, I remember thinking like, why can't I get in this? Why I was so tapped into everything else. Like, why can't I get tapped into this experience? And I remember just like hearing like, this isn't for you. This isn't an experience for you. This isn't work or healing that you need right now in this moment. Yeah. This is for everyone else in this space. Yeah. And I was good with that. Yeah. I was good with that.
And that's so important, and like such a reminder to like not judge oneself, but to go in and be like, why is this happening for me? And being able to tap in to yourself and trust for yourself and believe in whatever's coming through. Like just, not always conforming and not always feeling like you have to be doing something, like I need more healing, I need to do more. Right. It's like honoring your body, honoring your mind in the space that you're in. It can be way more profound.
Absolutely.
And way more of a learning experience. And a reminder to always, you are your temple. Exactly. And you need to honor that.
Exactly. And when that idea came across, like it wasn't like, oh, is this truth? Is it not? I immediately believed it and recognized it to be truth because it was. That experience wasn't for me. Yeah. And that's not a good, bad, or right or wrong thing. It just wasn't. But that experience was very much for practically everyone else in that space. And I loved that and I honored that. And I was so glad that everyone had the space to experience that. And I'm grateful that I had the space to experience or not experience whatever I did or didn't. Yeah. And I think that that's what I shared at the end when Soul asked about how everyone's experience was. It was exactly that. And so being able to close that out and get back to the villa and eat our bounty of guacamole was really nice, because I needed a moment to just get back to whatever. Because it was a lot from that morning that I was still trying to recover from. And I think that night was the night that we worked with Naomi, where Naomi had her workshop.
Oh yeah, it was. Damn.
Yeah. She did a some sound work.
Mm-hmm.
She did readings.
Yeah.
For all of us.
Oracle card readings. She's a beautiful shaman.
Yes. We're going to tag her stuff in this podcast as well. This is in this episode, because she is absolutely an incredible, powerful force. She has been working in shamanism for over 20 years. Her ancestry within this work dates back, I mean, was it 3 or 4 lineages, or 3 or 4, past matriarchs within her familial lineage.
Yeah.
And she is truly a powerhouse and a huge blessing for us to have had on this retreat, because her power and her energy and her experience was very necessary. So we'll also add her information within this episode. If you are interested in connecting in with her one-on-one or learning more about the services she offers, we highly recommend her.
Totally. 12 out of 10 recommend.
Yeah.
I mean, if she were not there this weekend, we would be in a totally different place and not as good as the place where we are right now.
Right.
So much so that we're wanting to road trip to Florida, where she's located, and just be with her, because she's such a beautiful human that is doing such great work for the healing community, for the spiritual community, and her connection with Mother Earth and the animals is so profound, and really I connect with her a lot in regards to that. And she was really able to touch base with the different animals that were coming through for people in the retreat. For my jaguar, I saw 2 baby scorpions, like little baby scorpions, and I was so gooped and gobbled by those little babies. And so many other animals, butterflies for a lot of our transformation.
Salamanders were very present. So she did oracle readings for us and really sent messages home of like, this is your next step. For me, like, I'm sitting here wondering, what are my next steps career-wise? Like, what am I supposed to do? And just a huge reminder of like, follow what feels good. Like, you don't need to have everything laid out. You don't need to have like, this is exactly how it's going to work. And now you may move forward. It's like, no, follow what feels aligned and good. Don't keep doing the things that don't feel good to you. Right.
So that was powerful for me. And just seeing her like innately connect with the animals through the cards and get that reading.
Yeah, it was very powerful when she said that, she could read. We could pull cards, and that, she would be happy to read and translate whatever messages came through. I was like, hell yes, sign me up. I was the first person. She was like, okay, well, who wants to? And I said, me, me, because something's happening and I need some support. And also just all of the things that I have been feeling and experiencing just in this past, I feel like, year of transformation, being just in a very, very deep part of my transition from, old life to now, being here and really wanting to be fully immersed and ingrained in the spiritual work, and following my huge passion in serving community and supporting others and facilitating ceremony, and just being able to offer in whatever capacity I can offer in, to show it for others and be a light for others who are going through dark times, like, is the sole purpose of why I'm here. And I've resonated with that for a very long time. And I've been ready to step full time in that purpose. And so when I received the cards that I received, I already felt the message, but it was incredible to have someone of her stature to be able to read and confirm, because every single one of those cards hit. And one of those cards was a hawk. The other one, there was quite a few, and I wish I remembered.
Well, one was an owl.
It was a hawk.
Oh, I thought it was an owl, and it said omens.
It was a hawk.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a hawk. But the message pretty much reiterated exactly what it was that we knew was true about our experience, or about where I was in my journey and where I was to go. Very much like, trusting in the messages that source is trying to send me. Tiffany knows that I see angel numbers up the wazoo.
And feathers.
And feathers. Those are two different ways that my guides will communicate with me. And so, trusting in the messages, following the steps, doing the work, and knowing to expect the unexpected, that literally at any point in time, something beautiful can happen. Mm-hmm. And I think that really the whole take home message was to quit my job.
To go full force in the spiritual community.
Yes.
And that you have gifts that are needed. And in order to tap into those gifts in the level that you need to, you need to be able to dedicate all of your waking time to that.
Yes. And that I'm trying to think that if we've forgotten about a day or one of those dreams and what happened, because I don't think that we've spoken about the door yet.
That was that night.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was very much so like there is work to be done. And in order to be able to do that, you need to exist full time in this work. And very much so, like the universe has been trying to give you these messages. Why aren't you trusting in the universe? And, Tiffany and I both have very similar stories where we've already like quit the jobs. Like we've already quit our huge, like the big work that we were doing.
Our career. We quit our careers that we've built so much time into.
Exactly.
What society would think is an acceptable career.
Exactly. And, doing what I'm doing now, which is really just a lot of spiritual work, and having a pretty full schedule in that. And also, working with my beautiful, incredible baby I love so much. Like my heart hurts to leave him. But I know it is time. That was the wake up call, because I've been feeling called about, it's time to let go. It's time to let go of that. And it's been, my love for my beautiful baby that has kept me.
Because you're a nanny.
Because I nanny. Yes, I nanny. But that is my baby, my fiery Sagittarius. He is that boy. Okay. Feeling that deep connection that I have with him. I know I was meant to be with him for a reason. Yeah. He was nonverbal before I got him. He was nowhere near as just like bold and vibrant and beautiful and expressive, and just he is that boy. Like he's gonna pick out his outfit, and if he wants to wear the same Santa pants that he wore yesterday and the day before, he's gonna wear those Santa pants. Okay. And so we get him his Santa pants, and I love him for that. Right. But that it was time to step away from that. And that's really the message that I received from that modality. And everyone else was very much like, yes, you gotta go. Like, you gotta go.
And I think it's like we're going through this journey together for a reason. And I think that both of us are going through that right now. We quit our main careers together, and now we're in this place of like, why are we dedicating so much energy towards something that is not
aligned with where it is that we're meant to go?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that it's just trusting.
Yes.
Like truly trusting and believing when there are not enough angel numbers, when there are not enough feathers, when there are not enough spirit animals. Like it's just the inner knowing.
Exactly. And, the fact that I've received all of the feathers and the angel numbers and, the spirit guides, it's just like further confirmation. So I did, when I got home, I put my notice in, and I will be stepping away from my time there as a nanny. So I'll be going full-time on my purpose. So if anyone
full-time spiritual journey, honey.
So if anyone is interested in any coaching, any one-on-one support, any way that I can show up for you in whatever capacity, whatever modality that works for you, just let me know. I'm here for the people, and financial accessibility is very important to me. Everyone deserves love and support in whatever way. So if you're hearing this message and you feel called, feel free to shoot me a message on Instagram, leave a comment, and I'd be happy to chat with you further. But that is what I really received from that modality specifically in my message. And your message was kind of similar, but a little different.
How do you think it was different?
It was like, take the jump, but also appreciate the in-between.
Yeah.
And sometimes the jump isn't from one leaping pad, the frog pedal, to another.
Mm-hmm.
It's like for the in-between that'll get you there.
And I pulled, guess what card?
Yes.
I pulled a Jaguar.
Your Jaguar. Yeah.
So that was kind of wild. Just like a reiteration of like, you're meant to lead. You're meant to go further. You're meant to lead with fire.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that might look like. But embracing the in-between. Like it's uncomfortable right now. It really is, because it's like knowing where you're meant to be, but not quite being able to be there yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really interesting. And I want to touch base on, I think us coming together, every time we come together, and it's true for everybody in the spiritual community, when you combine forces, things happen on a much larger level and a bigger scale. And so when we just like 2 weeks or a week prior even to the retreat, you were like, I think we're meant to combine forces. And I was like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, you had said that however many months ago.
Yeah, I'm like, we're more powerful together. And this is true when I combine with my best friend Jess. It's like whenever we do the work together, it is rewarded tenfold. And so, it's all exponential. And so I think us being like, it's time to do this journey together, to do workshops together, to do women's circles and men's circles together. I think clearing that space for both of us to know that we're going to be doing this work, and whatever's going to come out of it is going to be more powerful than what you've been doing individually so far.
Exactly.
And same for myself.
Exactly.
And that's going to require us creating more space.
Yeah.
And so I think that's clear, that those messages were clear in those oracle readings by Naomi. But let's dive into what happened that night, if you're ready.
Yeah.
So we share a room.
We do share a room.
And
not a bed, unfortunately.
Fortunately for me.
Fortunately for Tiffany. But unfortunately for me. That night was just, standard. Went to sleep and I was facing the door and Tiffany was facing the other direction. I'm closest to the door. Tiffany was closest to the sliding door or balcony. And I just remember laying there with my eyes closed, or I just remember laying there feeling asleep, but my eyes were open and I was awake. And I could see the room and see the space for what it was. And I was just looking at the door to our room and I remember seeing it open. And when it opened, there was just darkness behind it, which, was like, okay, well, if the lights inside of the villa were off, then it would be dark. But I just remember seeing the door open and it just stayed open and there was nothing. I couldn't see anything behind the door. Nothing was coming in. And I immediately was so scared. I turned over and wrapped my head in the covers and was like, Tiffany, screaming at Tiffany to wake up, the door is open. The door is opening. Bitch, wake up, please. And then you did wake up.
Well, I wasn't awake. I wasn't asleep though.
Oh
no, I was in this state of getting ready, to enter slumber. I was so exhausted. I was like, but it was when we were falling asleep. It was still very early in the night.
Oh, girl, it felt so late.
No,
oh,
because
okay.
and because it was my thoughts were, are we gonna fall asleep or not? Because you had woken me up for the knocking sounds, I thought, that night, and I was like, I did hear the knocking sounds. I heard the knocking sounds, and people were opening and closing doors downstairs, and then we opened the door. And I thought
there was nothing,
and then I'm like, okay, back to sleep, or not back to sleep, but finally go full asleep, And then, but when you were talking to me, I know you think in your mind or in your memory, you were like, Tiffany.
Yeah.
You were just like, Tiffany, the door's open. I'm like, what door? And you're like, that door. And I feel like you mentioned to the house. And I'm like, how are you going to know that when we're upstairs on the second floor?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's not. And then you're like, no, the door is open. I'm like, no, it's not. Because I know our door's not open.
Yeah.
And I did not hear anyone open downstairs. And you're like, the door right there is open. And I was like, no, it's not. And so I get up and I open the door and I'm like, it wasn't open. And you're like, what? And then I'm like, okay, I can go back to sleep. Like, I've proven this door was not open.
Yeah.
And then you end up having a dream that evening. If you want to talk about that.
Was it that evening?
Yeah, it was that night.
Oh my gosh.
So to me, there was like the first night, there was like the knock at the door. And then the second night was the door opened. And then the same night was when there was something that had entered the room through the door opening.
I don't remember if it was that night or the next night. I feel like it was the next night.
The next night would have been our very last night there.
Right. Oh, no. Then it wasn't. Yeah, you're right. So then it was that night. Yeah. So that was that experience. Wow. It feels like all of those nights were so separate because they were all just so intense. Well, anyways, yes, it was that night because instead of facing the door, I was facing the other way away from the door. Mind you, after we had that experience, I could have sworn that I woke up and that I got out of bed and I grabbed the door, I touched it, I opened the door and saw the light behind the door and closed it. But Tiffany swears that didn't happen. And so whether I was in a dreaming state or not, I know for a fact that I physically remember touching that door in some capacity. So I don't know what that was, whether that was in dream state or that was in reality state. That was my experience. So after that, getting back into bed, I remember just laying there and staring at the door and just being like, how is it that I saw that the door was opened? And I was like closing one eye and then opening the other, trying to feel like, sometimes if you stare at something long enough, your mind starts to play tricks on you and then you start to see. There was no way I could visualize how the door had opened. And so then I was like, all right, well, I need to get some sleep. But that shit was scary. So I'm going to cover myself. I'm going to turn the opposite way from the door and I'm going to try to go to sleep. So then, some time definitely had passed between then. And it was the same thing. I was laying down, awake, but I was asleep, but my eyes were open in that level of consciousness. And I just remember seeing this like darkness that was just coming out from underneath Tiffany's bed. And it was just this like, I don't want to say like a cloud, but it was just this darkness. It just kept coming. And it's
like a form.
Yeah, like a form. And I unconsciously was like, what?
Who dat?
Who are you? Yeah.
Who that be?
Who that boy? Who him is? Who dat? And I literally just asked, so who are you? And he said the name of an ex-partner of mine, an ex-boyfriend. And I just remember, I remember in my mind being like, there's no way. Like, who are you? And he said his name again, but louder. And I asked him another time, and he practically shouted the name at me. And at that point in time, I just remember this feeling of like hands grabbing me, grabbing my wrists, and me shaking because of the feeling and the pain. Like it hurt. And then I woke up. And I don't remember what I said to you.
No, it was the next morning.
Oh, I didn't say anything to you that night? Okay.
No, remember you started your chanting and put music on, which I thought was profound because I didn't wake up to that, right? Yeah. And then the next morning is when you woke up and you told me about the dream.
Yeah.
And that's when
you had your moment.
was like, oh, like, yeah. The next morning when she told me about her dream, and I've always said, and I was saying it on the retreat, that you are such a light in this world. Like you just emanate light, and it's like you're beautiful. We know, like, duh, like just look at her. But like it's the light that comes, that shines out of you, and like just you're just such like a beam for people, and there's a point for that, and it's for people to come to you to connect with you, to be healed. That is your purpose. And that's why it's so important for you to have the time that you need to continue to work on being that light always.
Right.
And I always am like, well, I know that in this spiritual journey, that when you are such a beam of light, you attract a lot of darkness. But I felt like, I have my 3D battles of darkness. They come usually in humans, like to me and whatever. But I'm like, but you, like, I feel like there should be so much more darkness that you are battling or lessons for you to learn because your light is so bright. And it really doesn't falter. Like, I've seen it falter. Like, I've seen you go through things. Yeah. But that's when I sat up in bed and I had like this reaction, like visceral reaction of like my heart, like I felt my heart chakra and I just started crying. And I'm like, like in my mind, I'm like, why am I crying? But like also like feeling like, oh my gosh, like, and then I just start to see like, we talk about the red threads and it's all connecting. And I'm like, wow, the darkness that you're battling is in a spiritual realm. It's in a different realm that us on 3D Earth, that like, my humans that I deal with, like, or whatever I deal with, it's not on that level. It's on something else. And I remember you've talked to me in the past about how you have had connections in this spiritual world that have not been pleasant, that have been dark. And so your ability to tap into that, but also at that time you became very scared and you closed that off intentionally. So all of these little facts and little things that I have learned and gained through knowing you, it just all came rushing towards me. And I remember I kind of felt like I was channeling in that moment, like telling you, like, listen, this is what your purpose is. This is why your light shines so bright. This is why you're so protected. This is why you have so much protection. Your guides, like, I mean, it's a powerful spiritual team that protects you. And I know you get that from other spiritual leaders in the community. It's just something that we can see and we can tell. And to me, if you have that just innately with you, like, that's because you're destined to fight some things that you need that much protection for. And so, that was the morning of Goddess Yoga, where we kind of like got out of our minds and into our bodies and reconnected back with ourselves and integrating.
So necessary.
What we've learned, what we've shed, and what we've brought back. And I know I led that next morning,
which was beautiful and so necessary, so needed. Like, I needed that to feel grounded. I felt so off in so many different ways. And I was just praying to Source, if you're here with me, like, I just need to feel tapped back into my power, because right now I'm feeling so confused and I am feeling empty. I don't know. I need strength and I want to tap into my highest self. And you provided me that gift through the beauty that is Goddess Yoga.
Yeah, that was really, I was afforded 2 hours to introduce and talk about what Goddess Yoga is and how it is created by women for women, and just tapping into our bodies, into our sisters, and into Source, and really trying to get out of our mind. I know that in Reggie Yoga, you are on a linear mat and you kind of stay in that mat. But with Goddess, you are welcomed to move your body in a much more circular way. Like our female bodies are much rounder, curvier. And so really open up our hips and our heart and just moving off our mat, dancing, and just kind of like coming back into our bodies and who we fully are as a wholeness now.
And it was a profound experience for a lot of the women that were there.
Yeah, it really was. I've got some women that want to become certified, that are looking for teachers wherever they might live. And I'm just so thankful, because the one person I wanted to touch, it was many women, and just to see them, radiate afterwards and feel so embodied and in touch with who they are and the beauty of them and accepting their body for exactly the way it is, where it is, and how it is in this moment. And everyone is so different, and that's the beauty of it. And then we were able to tap into our goddess, or continue tapping into our goddess for our photo shoot, which you came through.
I mean,
honey.
that rain was raining. And I was like, well, it's raining now, and the dress that I wanted to wear is not going to work for me. So what are we going to do? And so we decided to get a little Nikki. So if you want to see those pictures, follow me at Golden Glowing Goddess Instagram. But yeah, it was so much fun. And all of the ladies really shined through in their own very special way. Yeah. And it's so beautiful. Big shout out to Gali Do. Gali Do Art is her Instagram handle. She is an incredible photographer, and she was able to find a way to make every single one of us feel so comfortable and confident and empowered and
shine through.
And
she's so intentional. Intention is so important to us. And just like hearing her talk and like why she does the things she does and how she wants to implement them, like she's a powerful force.
Absolutely.
Intentional.
And not just a photographer. She is very much so the type of photographer that, you know, should be traveling the world and ensuring that she's capturing very beautiful moments. So if you're interested in learning more about her work, you can find her online, but she is going to be capturing a lot more retreats, I know. And if you just feel like you need a special person to really capture a beautiful moment or capture you in your most raw self, I highly recommend her. And I know that she does and will travel for these experiences. So
100%.
So yeah, that's Gali.
Yeah. And then we had a little art and art intuitive with Sam, where she dropped us in. And we were able to create art from that, which I really love. Art and dance is such a good way to release anything and tap in and become a creatrix with God. And so that was really beautiful. During the art intuitive, though, I don't know how you were feeling, but I was feeling in the art. And I don't remember what happened first, but I've never seen like dark, like what you described was under my bed. I've never seen dark figures or forms, or like, I describe it kind of like Dementors from Harry Potter.
Little homies.
Little homies. I call them banshees. I've seen them before, I will say, but I've never acknowledged them to be whatever that is. And to have that inner knowing of like, that is what that is.
Right.
And so I remember looking over to the woman to my right, and then I just saw this thing up on the balcony up top, right by our bedroom door. And so I was like, something's there. And I look up and I was like, oh gosh, like this, like, not a punch in the gut, but like this, like,
sick feeling.
Yeah, like, oh, that's not good. And I remember you were sitting across from me, thank God.
Yeah.
And I was like, I tried to whisper to you. I just saw something. I see dead people. and you were like, what? And like,
because I knew what you were talking about, but I needed to hear you say it.
Yeah. And you were just like, what? And I was like, let this woman talk. Like, this woman's talking, but like, I'm like, yeah.
You know.
And then we let her talk, and you're like, what did you say?
Yeah.
I was like, I saw something up there.
Yeah.
A dark figure.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Naomi's sitting next to you, and she's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, because I hear noises. I hear clapping and clacking.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And then Naomi's like, what, and we let her know, the shaman, and she's like, okay. And I can see her, and she's starting to drop in, and then she's starting to like look around on the wall behind me. And I can tell she's like, this has got to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Like, I got to do something. And she stands up from the table and she's like, ladies, I'm about to go upstairs and make some noises. Whatever you hear, don't mind.
Yeah.
It's got to be done.
Yeah.
And she goes up there, slams the door, and starts cleansing that space, our bedroom.
Yeah. Yeah. Our bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's up there for like 10 solid minutes. And it is frightening as can be. Like, especially for it to be the first time that I've seen something that I can confirm I know what it is. And it's not within this realm, this dimension. And I can see you. And I'm like, my girl's going through it right now. And so I think I like tell the table, like after some time, I'm like, ladies, we need to protect Naomi.
Yeah.
And we need to meditate on seeing a golden glowing light in our bedroom, home, protection, whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
Tap into that.
Yeah.
Because that's the energy we need.
Yeah.
No fear.
Yeah.
I need that shirt again, that brand, no fear. But yeah, so we sat there and then I remember we started chanting Ohms to clear it. And I know it was different experience for you.
Yeah. I was going through it. I was like gripping the hands of the girls and my whole body started shaking, like trembling, like my teeth started chattering. I was not cold. It was not cold in that space. We're in the freaking jungle. We're using like wall AC units. I was shaking. I was trembling. It felt as if like my body was being pulled like inside. There was like this pulling and my body was just like so tense. Like it felt like I was like being lifted almost. And just shaking and just praying and just like, God, like, if you're here, like, please, what is happening? Like, please help me. Like, what is this? And I had no words and I was just confused and I was distraught and I was just like, what is happening right now? And my heart hurt so bad for the other ladies that were there because this is not what they signed up for sure. And everyone's on different levels of their spiritual journey. Like everyone that was there was on different levels of their spiritual journey. And who the hell knows what anyone else's belief was about the other or dark energy or whatever the case may be. But it was a very aggressive, very intense experience. And, you know, it was very, very intense. And so thankfully, prior to that situation, when we had a moment in between our break time, I did discuss the dream with Naomi and the girls there. And so everyone was aware of what it was that I was dealing with and what my experience was. So this didn't just come from left field. For them. And during that conversation with Naomi and with Pat, who is medium, they were hearing me speak as all of these, you know, realizations are coming to me, thoughts and memories that I completely forgot that I even had, that I even experienced, started coming to my mind and making myself aware. And Naomi was just speaking to, you know, that. As I was telling her about my dream, she's like, yeah, that's walking. You're a walker, speaking about that and just saying that I'm being called into mediumship work, which was, I think I did laugh. I think I laughed. I think I was like, what are you talking about? This is crazy. And just like, and as she's talking, I was like, just like I said, thinking about things that I had experienced and just like, okay, well, is that why there would be times where I would look at myself in the mirror and my eyes like wouldn't be my eyes. Like my eyes wouldn't look like those were my eyes. And she was like, yeah, that's called scribing or something like that. And then she was like, well, you know, have you ever had this experience? And, you know, when you look at a person and their face morphs slightly and then it morphs back. And I was like, yes, because that has happened before. And that has happened specifically, I know, multiple times with one of my ex-partners. There have been many times where that had happened.
The same ex that...
No.
Okay.
No. Different ex. Thank you for clarifying that. And there were other things that we spoke about, you know, me waking up the next day from my sleep and waking up with bruises on my body. And
just like this morning.
And thinking like, and I always told people in a joking manner, like, yeah, I'm finding demons in my sleep. Or reflecting back to another experience that I had similar to, the one with the energy coming from the bed and being gripped on, an experience that I had. And what I thought was a dream, where a woman was on a rocking chair next to my bed, and she came up to me and she was grabbing me, and my whole body like vibrated, and I felt like I was having a seizure. Like that was like a shaking, and I let that go because I was like, this is so crazy. This is not real. And being in my home and hearing things and seeing things, like, all of these memories just started flashing back to me, like things that I really closed myself off on whenever I had the experience, when I like initially was tapping into spirituality and had to go get cleansed because I was notified that there was darkness around me. So after that happened, I closed that door and was like very far removed from that aspect of spirituality, and just really stayed focused and tapped into healing work, like emotional, healing work, light work, yoga, breath work, cleansing, nothing like working with the actual spiritual realm. Yeah. And so as we're having this conversation, I'm just like, what the heck is she talking about? But knowing in my heart that it's true, and feeling my third eye just like pulsate, like it hurts so bad. And then feeling it open, close. Like there were just so many things. And
even like the smell, that one day we walked into the room, like I walked into the bedroom, I was like, damn, it smells like cheese in here. That's weird because it's not smelled like that before.
And our door had been closed the whole time of the retreat because we wanted to keep the AC inside the room.
And then you walk in, you're like, did you just fart? And I'm like, no, I didn't, but you smell that, right? And then we asked Naomi, like, was that smell? What is that? And she's like, that's the releasing of the negative energies from your bodies. And since we've been back, there's been so many times where I've smelled cheese, or someone's commented that they smelled cheese on me or on you or in your car.
Yep.
And it's just like this continual releasing process of
whatever.
The healing and the releasing from this retreat. And just still ongoing, and we're still deciphering a lot of things and still trying to learn a lot and figure out what it is and why and how do we go about it. And
because very well that you play a very important role on this journey and in this process as well. Like you have an inner knowing about that.
Yeah, I do. It's actually crazy because in one of my meditations before the retreat, I was asking for, guidance and whatever, clarity to go forward on certain things in my life. And what happened was an ancient animal came to me, and I can't really describe what animal it was. It's an animal that doesn't exist anymore. But the point of that connection that I made was just take care of Kayla, just love Kayla. Like that was what it was like, don't worry about what you're asking about right now. It'll be taken care of. But what you need to focus on is take care of Kayla. And in my mind, I'm like, well, duh. Yeah. Like I know.
That's my girly pop.
Yeah. We're working together. Like it's happening. But I don't think realize neither of us knew what was going to happen. And we're still deciphering it. We're still trying to figure out what that looks like and what's next for us. And I know we'll talk about the integration on our next episode of what it's been like to take our spiritual lessons and our healing lessons from this retreat and bring them back into our reality, into our world, as we know it, as we left it before the retreat. And we've mentioned some brief things that have happened, like you were quitting your job, but it's really more about the spiritual awakening that both of us simultaneously had that we've not even really touched base on. I mean, for you, yes, we've touched base on that, but the spiritual awakening that's much deeper and further than any awakening that you and I have experienced in the past. And just this opening of a whole nother world dimension, and how we are trying to integrate that into the 3D reality in which we live. And I say reality, but what is real, you know? And I think we both know that the 4D, the dimension that we entered into, is really what's real, and that everything on this earth that we know it, we make on our own. Mm-hmm. We are creating all of this.
Yep.
And yes, we can intellectualize that, but I think for me, part of my spiritual awakening this time around is knowing that.
Yeah.
Like, we are creating this, and that's what this dimension is for.
Yeah.
Is creation, and how beautiful that is. But like, if you don't know that and you don't use that power, like, you can really create a hell of your own.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we'll talk about on our next episode, is how we integrate and what that looks like, not only in the 3D, but in the spiritual world.
Yep.
In the 3D and the 4D.
Yeah.
And all the above.
It's been a wild ride, this experience, and there's no one else I'd rather go through it with than you. And knowing that, as crazy as all of it sounds, to know that we were both there together in those moments, and we have so many other witnesses and people that were there, and to have had the people that we had with us on that journey is so comforting.
Yeah.
Whatever it means, we know it is truth,
Yes.
and that it is our truth most specifically. And I'm very much so looking forward to continuing this integration process with you.
Yes.
And very much so looking forward to seeing what the universe has in store for us, because it is something big.
It's
and
huge.
It's something beautiful.
It is beautiful. And I am so honored to do this with you. I'm so supported and guided. I think, like I said earlier, we're only stronger together.
Absolutely.
That's true for everybody that's listening. You know, get your people, find your community, connect in, and that's where you'll find your help and your biggest blessings and your growth.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on these 2 very, very, very special episodes. Thank you to Muted Studios for allowing us to do so in your space, for hosting us here in your beautiful studio space. We've looked very, very much so forward to tapping back in with all of you.
Yes. And if you've had any experiences like this, please feel free to reach out, because we are kind of navigating this on our own with some people that we've already mentioned in the podcast. But we know just as much as you might know, but you need to have your support in your community.
Absolutely.
So thank you for being here with us. Thank you for listening. And we look forward to our next episode and hearing responses from y'all.
Yep.
Aho. So be it.
Aho, honey.